Hey, so today let's talk about the Oppo Reno 8T 5G. I've been using this smartphone for about 2 weeks. It's 1,499 dirhams here in the UAE. And I've got to say, for the price tag, it does some things really well and some things not so well. And that's exactly what I'm going to be discussing in this review video. Let's start off with design and build quality. I think as far as the overall build and design goes, I'm pretty impressed. It's a 171 gram smartphone with a 7.7 millimeter thickness, so not that heavy and not that sort of unwieldy. And that's something I really like from a smartphone like this. I think Oppo's done that consistently well, and they've done it with the 8T 5G as well. So I have no complaints on that front. I don't have the shiny color that the others have, so I can't show you the actual real unique selling point design of the smartphone, but I'll overlay a few videos here and there for you guys to see the different color variant as well. I've got this bluish one, which I don't personally mind. It's got this matte finish, so it doesn't attract that many fingerprints, and it does provide a fair bit of grip as well. So overall, if you look at it from a design perspective, I'm not complaining too much. Right, so the biggest thing that anyone cares about on a smartphone is the display. And on the front, you have a 6.7-inch panel. It's a 1080p panel, it's an AMOLED panel, and it gets plenty bright. And that's something I value on a smartphone a lot in Dubai, because you've got direct sunlight throughout most of the months here, and you want the panel to get plenty bright. So a bright panel really helps out. It's a 120 hertz panel as well, but I don't think the smoothness is quite up there. And I'll talk about that in just a bit. I just want to address sort of the other things with the display. As far as multimedia consumption goes, as far as the actual experience is concerned, it's pretty good. It's got stereo speakers as well. So when you listen to your documentaries or your podcasts or your videos, whatever you want to listen to on your smartphone, it's not going to be of any problem. And the display is fairly immersive as well. You've got pretty much minimal bezel. I don't know if you can see that here, but it's very minimal all across the board. So I'm really impressed with the display as well. And the overall media quality of the panel is good too. You won't get the highest end saturated colors, but it's definitely something that's really good for the 1,499 dirham price tag. Now, back to the 120 hertz display. It is 120 hertz, but I feel like it's not the smoothest compared to other smartphones out there. Now, this could be due to two reasons. One could be the software optimization. Personally, I have no problems with ColorOS 13, which is what this thing runs on top of Android 13. And to be honest, I've had no problems. Multitasking is great. It keeps enough RAM in memory, or it keeps enough applications in memory given the RAM on board. And I don't have any problems with the customization experience that this provides. You can do whatever you want with a smartphone, and as long as you can accept some of the elements of ColorOS, for example, when you scroll through the notification bar, you get this sort of convoluted UI, which you cannot change, but it's not something that you cannot get used to either. So I don't think ColorOS 13 is a bigger bottleneck. I do think that the processor on board is what really makes the difference. And I think the processor will lead on to the other things that I want to talk about with this smartphone. So inside, you've got the Qualcomm Snapdragon 695 5G chip. This provides you with 5G coverage, but it does bottleneck you in a lot of ways. I think the 120 hertz is just one thing. The other big bottleneck that I want to talk about is the camera. Now, the camera on this thing is fairly impressive. It's a 108 megapixel primary sensor, which on paper is really good. If you look at the daytime photos that it takes, I think it's pretty impressive. But the fact that the image signal processor or the image signal processing is from the processor makes a big difference. So you get things like a slow shutter speed, you get things like softer edges around your subject, and all of those things kind of, accumulate together, and that really bogs down the experience, which is what I felt with the Oppo Reno 8T 5G when it comes to imaging performance. I think RAM, storage, everything is great, but that processor is one of the biggest bottlenecks with this smartphone. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about, which I think is a unique selling point on this thing, is the microscope camera. There is another camera aside from the 108 megapixel camera, which is the microscope camera, which allows you to zoom really close into subjects. Now, I don't know if this is something that you would use on a regular basis, but definitely for the few times that I've used it and for the consecutive times that I've brought it up with people trying to showcase the new features on the smartphone, I think it's a really cool concept. You can zoom in all the way to pretty much anything you want and take minute pictures, almost microscopic pictures like the name suggests, of anything. And I think that is great. It's a unique selling point for sure. And I wish Oppo really embraces that and brings it to the next level by allowing you to capture video as well with that sensor. Because right now it's still a 2 megapixel sensor on there, so it's not the most detailed when you look at it from a quality perspective, but definitely you can zoom in, you can go all the way deep into whatever you want, and it's pretty fascinating to see the sort of stuff that you can figure out, like the edges of a table or even your skin cells. It's really fascinating. Now, there is another camera. It's a 2 megapixel depth camera, but it doesn't really do much, and I haven't really used the smartphone a lot for imaging because of all the reasons that I've said before. I think the overall hardware on the phone is great, but when it comes to actual implementation, the processor is where it sort of falls behind. I've taken a lot of pictures with this, daytime, nighttime. If you really want to take pictures, you need to be patient. You also need to have a lot of time, so you won't be able to do quick snaps with this phone because the shutter speed isn't quick enough. And when it comes to nighttime photos, again, you will need to be still with the smartphone for it to be able to capture, focus, and process the picture so that they come out looking right. There is no ultra wide angle camera on this thing, which I think is another drawback for the smartphone, but the microscope camera sort of makes up for that. On the front, you're looking at a 32 megapixel primary selfie camera, and once again, I think the story is pretty similar. The pictures aren't that sharp or detailed, especially in low light conditions, and the dynamic range on these pictures isn't too great either. So if you got a subject in the background and you're trying to take a selfie, for example, the background subject is going to get washed out or blown out, which, I don't know, is just a bit of a disappointment. And I think, again, this comes down to the processor, and the fact that this doesn't have 4K video is also surprising, because for a smartphone at this price tag, I think 4K video should have been there, especially for all the videos that we share online. 4K video is a necessity, and for Oppo to skimp out on that as well is kind of disappointing. But yeah, I think that pretty much sums up my experience with the Oppo Reno 8T 5G. I think overall, if you look at it from a design perspective and some of the unique features it provides, it might have some standing, but at 1,499 dirhams, it is a difficult sell, especially with phones like the Honor 70, which do provide you with a much higher end processor. For pretty much similar specifications, you won't get the microscope camera, but I think the overall user experience will be a bit better than the Reno 8T 5G. There's a 4,800 milliamp hour battery on the smartphone as well, which I think has been excellent. It can go all the way up to 1 day of usage, but it does fall short. So for a smartphone of this caliber, I think 5,000 milliamp hour batteries are sort of the norm nowadays, and for this to pack a 4,800 one doesn't make a huge difference. But when you compare it directly with the Honor 70, a smartphone that I was using before, you sort of notice that the battery life isn't up to mark. With that smartphone, you could go up to 2 days without caring about the battery at all, whereas with this one, you sort of have to turn on power saving mode at around 50%, sort of 3/4 of the way to 1 day of usage, because it will not last the entire 2 days if you, for whatever reason, cannot charge your smartphone through the night or whatever. There is 67-watt charging support on the smartphone, so if you do want to quickly top up the smartphone, you do have that. The charger is provided out of the box, and you get from 0 to 100% in about 44 minutes of charging, which is great. It's very convenient. But yeah, I think the battery life could have been a bit better, especially when you crank up the brightness and you're using things like navigation, maps, etc, etc. But I think that pretty much sums up and encapsulates my thoughts on the Oppo Reno 8T 5G. If you're looking for good design and the microscopic camera alongside fairly decent performance, then I think this smartphone is definitely there, but I do think it's a bit overpriced when it comes to other competition. And if you're looking for something a bit more sort of more value for money kind of smartphone, then definitely consider other options from Honor. But yeah, thanks for watching this one. Do let me know what you guys think down in the comments. Make sure to like and subscribe. I don't post on this channel as much as I'd like, but make sure to subscribe. Let me know what you guys think. What do you guys want to see next? And I'll see you guys in the next one. This is Vaibhav, and adios.